Sherron Wilkerson, the head man at Jeffersonville High School basketball, former IU player, joined us. Brother, how have you been? It's not been that long. It's been a few months since we were talking during the tournament, and you guys, you got close, few seconds short of playing for a state title. Is that worse than losing in the state championship game? Or I mean, just getting that close has got to be it just those kind of losses always drove me insane.
Mm-hmm. I think it's Jim, I think it's a two-part it's a two-part piece, if you will. I think emotionally it's really, really hard. I think I'd rather get beat 30 than to lose the way that we did. But from a perspective of accomplishments, there's no better feeling than to be able to say that you got to the Final Four in the state of Indiana in high school basketball. So for us, it's bittersweet. Me, man, I think the thing that we got out of it the most is now that we understand that we can compete on a state level again, which is great for us.
And it is a Final Four, and that kind of gets lost in how the tournament is set up now, because you go from semi-state to the state championship. But in essence, these semi-states are the Final Four, which instead of calling them semi-state, I would rather they call them the Final Four. I think that you deserve that honor when you reach that far.
I think it acknowledges the accomplishments of the student athlete, if that makes sense. You know, I think as a student athlete to be able to say you went to the Final Four versus saying that you went to the semi-state championship, I think that Final Four just has a little bit of ring to it, if you will. But the way that the IHSAA has it set up, so it used to be you have to play 2 games at the regional, 2 games at semi-state, and 2 games at state finals. Now they have it where you just have to play the 2 games at the semi-state. So it's changed a little bit, but I still think that it has that nostalgic feel to it just because it's Indiana high school basketball.
Well, you played some tough teams last year, getting through there. You remember defeating Pat Graham and that Evansville team, which was fun. AJ Moye was down there for that game. I got to see that. It was very cool. The emotion, I still remember you just standing back and just taking it all in. Just like a proud father, really. I mean, you tried to step back and stay out of the way of everything else that was going on. When you were the ringleader, you're the man in the orchestra pit, man. You were the conductor.
And, Jim, let me say it like this, buddy. I really appreciate that. But I think from my perspective, man, I look at it a little bit different, right? I look at it as a teacher who had some information that the students were missing. And once the students were able to get that information, the students were now able to become successful. And I think that that's how I think that is, in my humble opinion, I think that is how it should be played out. You know, a coach never makes a play. You know, I've come into this program, Jim, and I've really challenged these guys in ways that they've probably never been challenged before. And I think as a coach at any level, at any sport, if you do that, I think that you run a risk of losing players. Unfortunately for us, Jim, we were successful enough that the approach that I took, the kids bought into, man, and we're very fortunate, my friend.
Well, you guys have a good team. You were good last year, and that you have not missed a beat. You played in the Charlie Hughes last week, and not only did you play in it, you played against Braylon Mullins and Greenfield Central. You played against Carmel. You played against Fishers, a defending state champion. Who am I leaving out?
Carmel.
Lawrence North.
And we played Carmel. Yeah, Lawrence North and Carmel.
Carmel also. And Lawrence North and Xavier Robinson, one of the state's top players. So
that is correct.
You guys did not get – this was not an old school sectional where you're playing the single A schools, man. This was the meat of the order, it seems like. And you guys go 4-0, solid wins in each and every game. That's got to make you feel really good heading into the season now.
Jim, I think the thing that makes me feel really good, you know, we knew our guys. We knew our guys were really good players. When I came in, I took the job. I told the guys, I said, fellas, you guys are really, really good. Just got to clean some things up. I mean, man, we got to address a few things, but I think that you guys can play at the college level. And, man, and then our guys started seeing their contemporaries get all these accolades, get all these Power 5 offers, get these college coaches chasing them. And I told them, I said, fellas, here's the way that we prove that we belong is we start playing those teams. We start playing those teams and we start beating those players. You start beating the players that's holding the key, then you get the key. And Jim, I will have to tell you, man, it's from a perspective of achievement, it's been absolutely fantastic because we've beat them all. I mean, man, we scrimmaged St. X and Great Crossing 5 days ago, and we went into St. X and we beat Great Crossing first. We beat them by 18. I mean, man, and then their premier player the next day goes to a visit at Kentucky. I mean, man, so like we are beating everybody that is getting all the high accolades. And I just think now it's time for our student athletes and our program to start being recognized for their success.
For those of you not up in the know, Great Crossing is a school down in a little town called, what is it there in, daggone it, just west of Lexington, Georgetown, Kentucky.
Yep,
it's where they've got some guy named Malachi Moreno. So he, as Sherron just kind of subtly let that go through. Yeah, it was Malachi Moreno. So they have beaten Malachi Moreno in the last couple of weeks. You've beaten Braylon Mullins.
Yeah.
Well, like you just said, you're beating them all. You're beating everybody, and you're doing it with a team that has obvious talent on it, but it's not. These are not the guys like Mullins and Moreno and Sisley and Harrelson. They're getting all these accolades, but it sure is funny. They're sure beating the brakes off everybody else.
You know, Jim, I think I think college basketball has moved to a space where coaches and programs are putting a premium on athleticism, and I think that Bobby Knight. I think that not only did he have it right, but I think now you're seeing Matt Painter mimic what Bobby Knight was doing. And I'm an IU guy to the heart, but you have to give credit. No, I'm one of the guys, man, that I root for everybody in the business because I think that we're all brothers at the end of the day. But I've used Purdue as a litmus test for my student athletes, and here's what I did. We pulled up their roster. They have 15 people on their roster. 11 of the kids from the 15 are Indiana kids. They just played for a national championship. And I think that it's something to be said to that. And I think that when IU was at its best, Coach Knight had a very similar roster. Most of his student athletes were Indiana guys. And it's something about Indiana high school basketball student athletes that is different from everybody else. And we've really made a concerted effort to hang our hat on what Bobby Knight, what he stood for. And it's worked out for us so far, Jim.
Now, are you running a hybrid of the motion offense?
We do. It has some principles in it. And Jim, that's the thing about the motion offense. You know, I always hear everybody talk about Coach Knight being such a great X and O's guy, and he was. But here's the deal, Jim. Like, Coach Knight didn't have any set plays. He had no set plays out of bounds. He had no set plays against zone. He had no set plays against the press. There was no set plays. It was just screen and read. And I think if you have the ability to screen and read, you learn how to recognize. And when you learn how to recognize, man, now you can teach the game of basketball. And that was such a huge advantage for me playing under Coach, because his motion offense, every action in the motion offense is incorporated in some type of set that everybody runs in college basketball. So Coach Knight was way ahead of his time.
If you have players that are able to do on the floor what is drawn up, that's unbeatable, first of all. And secondly, if you have players on the floor that are making decisions off of your decisions, that's almost unstoppable, because it's like everyone do the opposite of what you do as a defender. So you lose virtually, not every time, of course, but that's the premise behind it. Not lose the game, the defender loses, because the offensive player he's going to take what you give him and go the opposite way.
Of course, Jim, we always say that the offense has the advantage, obviously, But from a defensive perspective, there's things that you can do to take it away. And I think that is what has allowed us to be able to play against some really, really talented players. No, yes, they're extremely talented, but everybody has weaknesses. And the comment was made about our weekend that it was summer basketball and guys didn't have an opportunity to scout and Jim, I have to tell you, our staff and I, we take a different approach because we believe in real time adjustments. Obviously, yes, man, we scout every opponent that we play. But once we get into the game, what if our opponent has added something new that we hadn't prepared for? Are you still going to lean on the fact that you just prepared and you're going to use what you used instead of being able to make the real adjustment? I mean, man, so I think that in itself gives us a huge adjustment as well.
Absolutely. And it's serving your program well. Are you surprised that you are doing as well as you are already? What's your third season at Jeffersonville? Or going to be fourth? What is it?
It's going into my third season, Jim. I would say yes and no, Jim. And
he's not a rookie, by the way. He's made his bones at Logansport, and we talked about this yesterday. Whenever Madison Shaw, which that's like that, you might as well be in the witness protection program. Then Madison, he climbed the ladder, man.
I definitely took the scenic route, Jim. And, and I think part of it was some of the things that happened to me as a young man. I mean, man, I had to clean some things up. I had to earn some people's trust back. I think I've done that. I think I had to prove to people that I could be in charge of a program and allow that program to flourish and grow. And then the third thing that I think that I had to do, Jim, and I think that I've done that. I'm an intense guy, Jim. I mean, man, I've taken more after Coach Knight, probably more than I anticipated. But man, it's what I truly believe. It's what saved my life, and in this situation where I'm at Jeffersonville, Jim, I'm facing and dealing with a lot of student athletes that were very similar to me. So I think the approach that I take is critical to our success. But I'm not really surprised because the things that I teach it works. The things that I teach have been taught to me by some really, really good coaches. So. Was just looking for an opportunity to have the right players, Jim.
And as you look forward, you won a state title as a player. Can you fathom winning a state championship as a coach and a player?
No, I cannot. I mean, Jim, it's obviously, man, it's something that we speak about. It's a goal of ours. But I think in the back of my mind, that's Jesus, buddy, in the state of Indiana, if that were to happen, you're talking about an elite class. And I think talking about it and having a goal, Jim, is one thing, but I think for it to actually come to fruition would be a whole nother ball game.
I'm trying to look up. It's probably going to take me longer than today to find out. I'm sure it has happened.
I think it's happened twice, if I remember correct. I think Coach Carlisle's done it at Ben Davis. And I think that it was done one other time, like in the early 40s, maybe, early 30s or 40s, I think. If I remember correctly, actually a buddy of mine did some research on it, and I vaguely remember. I know Coach Carlisle has done it at Ben Davis. I know he won a state championship as a player, and he just recently won it as a coach. But from that point, I think it's only been done one other time, Jim.
Well, you're close, but I'll tell you who you will outdo. I'm trying to make sure. Some guy named John Wooden. He did win one as a player, but I don't think he won it as a coach.
Nope. And I thought Damon did for a second. Bailey. I thought Damon did.
Did he win a girls' state title?
Didn't he win a girls' state championship?
Yeah, but that's I mean, I guess that counts. It's crossing over, but
yeah, it's crossing over. But and I thought, but I don't know on the boys' side for sure on both state player and coach.
I'm gonna have to research that, man.
Yeah, I think it's only been done a few times, man. That's special.
That would be the greatest full circle deal in life, and I love that. And we see people that get second chances, and they deserve second chances in life. And it's not. We just saw not Joey Hart, but his father just got a new job coaching in Indiana. So happy to see that coming forward. And I was talking to Todd Leary earlier this week. He was on with us on Monday, and I said, I'll have to ask Sherron, do you have any interest in moving up to the college level of coaching? I'm not talking about today or tomorrow, but just, is that something you think about?
Very much so. Every day.
Because you have that genre, you have that going. I mean, that's to me, it's easy to see. Great coaches are just good, and success just does not fall off of the turnip truck. The success you guys are having at Jeffersonville, that didn't just happen by osmosis. So talent is talent, and I think your talent is really coming through.
Jim, I really appreciate that, man, and I would tell you, I've been so blessed. You know, I know that from a public perception, man, especially as a young man, you know, some few things happen in my life, but I would tell you, Jim, I've been like God has had his hand all over me, even during the times, man, that I was struggling. I was still able to get what I needed from a spiritual standpoint. And I do, Jim. I think me being at Jeffersonville, man, I think it's a step and a part of my spiritual progression as a person being here on earth. I know it sounds crazy, but I do. I think that I had to go back to Jeffersonville, and I had to make sure that the student athletes understood what I stood for. And I think that I had to share. I don't even think that I had to share my successes, Jim. I think that it was more importantly that I shared my failures with our current student athletes. And I will be honest with you. I think ultimately that is what has allowed those student athletes to trust me at Jeffersonville. And it's paid dividends. But I do. I think once my time, whenever that may be, once my time is up at Jeffersonville, I mean, it's been well documented, Jim, that is the ultimate goal as a coach is to be at the Division I level as in the captain's chair.
And I know you talked to AJ Moye a lot. He's up at Valpo now. I mentioned he was down at that game last year with Pat Graham, which was cool to see that. And he has made his way back to the state of Indiana from California in coaching. And we've got Michael Lewis up at Ball State. It's Jordan Halls here at Indiana, Calvert Chaney at Indiana. And then there are many guys that are in high school and at other places around. And when you were a few years behind me, and when I was I was out of high school, of course, but when you were playing, and I was the other day talking to Todd, and I'm like, man, when he was here, because I just think of you as typical 17-year-old, 18-year-old punk kid, like everybody, like all of us were, me included. I'm like going, man, I can't imagine thinking that this guy was going to be the coach that he already looks like he's on path to be. And Todd said, no, I could see it. He goes, after spending time with him and getting to meet him and getting to know him, he goes, oh, I definitely see that. He talked about your desire to learn, which that's the difference between the great ones and not. You have to have this insatiable desire and craving to learn, to soak in as much as possible.
It started with Coach Broughton for me, Jim. Coach Broughton really impacted me from a perspective of I won't even call it a mentor perspective. I will call it literally a teaching or a teacher perspective. I mean, man, and then from that, the emotion that was behind it. And it's, I think that is what kind of set my vision. Then after I went and played for Coach, and I realized the impact that you could have from a perspective of just a life. I mean, just being able to impact student athletes on a day-to-day basis and how they communicate and how they carry themselves and how they speak in what they view as being important to them. what their ultimate goal is outside of basketball. I mean, man, you start to really, really get to know people. And that for me was it was really intriguing. And you mentioned, man, that through our successes, I sat back and I watched. For me, that is the best part, Jim. I mean, man, to see the facial expressions and to see the parents and I mean, man, to see the kids that you pushed and I mean, man, to see, kids that were upset with you because you told them one thing and they believed another and then it ended up working out. I mean, it's just so rewarding. There's nothing better. So that's ultimately what pushes me. And I want to do it at the highest level, my friend.
Well, you're definitely on your way, I believe. Your team was also recently up in Bloomington, along with my Highlanders and Fonzo Wright, playing at the IU team camp. How did things go there? Of course, I'm sure that was a walk through the park after you guys went through the machete shed up there. It's Charlie Hughes.
So I will tell you, Jim, we are right now in the month of June. We are 21-2. We have been to IU team camp. We went to Western Kentucky team camp. We went to Memphis team camp. We've been to Kent State team camp. We've been to Wright State team camp. We've been to Charlie Hughes. And now we will finish up tomorrow at Miami, Ohio team camp. And we are 21-2 during that stretch. And like I said, Jim, we have beat some really, really, really good teams on that. Well, I mean, man, we've been on a tour, I call it, but and we had to do that, Jim, because these are all the team camps at the college programs, and the college coaches get to see our kids in an intimate setting on their campus. And I think for me, Jim, the biggest advantage that you get going to the team camps is that college coaches actually get a true litmus test of the student athlete being challenged, coached, and pushed by the high school coaches. I think there's something to be said to that. AAU is great. Don't get me wrong. And I really appreciate the sacrifice and the amount of time that the AAU coaches invest in our student athletes. But at the end of the day, I truly believe that the high school coaches, they coach a little bit different. I think they coach more along the lines of the way that the college coaches would do it once student athletes got on campus. And I think that's what we have tried to do. We've tried to put our kids in those real-time situations so they're able to get evaluated accordingly. And again, we've been very fortunate that it's paid dividends for our program.
So you guys have played 23 games in the off season. Now that's something that didn't happen when you were in school. When I was in school, the AAU was around, but you guys didn't play this kind of games with your high school teams, did you?
No, the NCAA, well, let me say this first. The IHSAA has acknowledged the recruiting calendar at the NCAA level. And that is what, and gentlemen, we've discussed this a few times, but I think that the multi-sport athlete, I think it's important that they understand how the recruitment works in all of the sports, because if they're just at their high schools during the season in each respective sport, then they never get evaluated by the college coaches. So the way that it's set up right now, like let's take basketball for an example. November to March, the college coaches have season 2. So it's really difficult for those guys to get out and say that, like, let's say that they want to go out and recruit the class for 2025, or recruiting the class for 2025 versus recruiting a position for 2025 is completely different. So when those guys go out to recruit the class of 2025, they go to an AAU tournament, Jim, and they can see 300 student athletes versus going to a high school game where they can see maybe 1 or 2 kids. So I think just from a resource perspective, from a time management perspective, the IHSAA has really put our kids in a position where they can be evaluated many, many times over by the college coaches. And I think that's so critical.
In essence, it reminds me of, there are states, of course, in the South that have spring football for high school, where, that was nothing we had ever heard of. Those teams are just inherently better. They have to be. They're automatic. They're getting double the practice. And ask any coach, they're going to go, yeah. It's just something that is been missing. Now, do many of your guys play AAU still, or are they busy and committed to the team more with that many games?
All of our guys play AAU. So I will tell you, Jim. So here's how it works for us. So we have the season, March through November, November through March. Then April and May, we have what we call our Big Brother program. That's when we bring our younger kids in to work with our high school guys 2 days a week. At the same time, our older guys are playing AAU in April and May on the circuits and being seen by the college coaches and being evaluated. Then we get feedback from that time, April and May, when the college coaches have seen them. They reach back out to us in June. And then whoever reaches out to us first and invites us to our team camp, that's where we go. So from that perspective, our guys who have already been seen on the circuit now get to go on campus and they get to be evaluated on an intimate basis that we just discussed. And then we come back in July, and then they finish up with their AAU guys on the circuit. And then we go into August and get ready for the preseason.
Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle with Indiana Sports Beat Radio, and thank you for enjoying our content and videos. And make sure you hit that subscribe and notifications toggle so you don't miss out on anything, whether it's Indiana Hoosiers, the Boilers, the Colts, the Pacers, Indiana high school action, whatever's happening in sports. We're trying to bring it all to you, and make sure you don't miss out on a thing. Again, hit the subscribe button for us. Helps us out a ton. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much.